You guys are not here, so I'm the only audience here. So I'm going to ask the question that I'm interested in. I'm very interested in the technical part because I always struggle.
Don't worry, I do too. So
Yeah, so I'm curious because people tell me as long as you can read the practice the cracking interview book 3 times. He did 3 times. I don't know.
oh my
Some
gosh.
people are very crazy and like remember or can do all the questions on the book. Then you will be fine. So I just want to see like how really
True.
how true it is, and then how did you prepare that? How long should it take for you to get ready
Right.
to ask all the technical
Yeah.
interviews for the big
Oh my
companies?
gosh. I mean, it's true. If you finish the entire book, that is plenty. That's like more than enough. But
More than
I didn't do that much, like for sure. I did maybe like 30% of the questions in the book. But I think the idea there is like you just try like a little bit of like each area. So the book breaks it down into arrays, linked lists, stacks, queues, trees, graphs, and then they have like bitwise operations and then like sorting algorithms and like areas like that. So the important thing was to try a few questions from each of these areas because you don't know like what they're gonna ask you about, and then it also helps to like try things like leak code and HackerRank because everyone knows that like every single like computer science student is looking at cracking the coding interview, so they're going to try to avoid questions from there. But it's still very useful to like go through and practice those questions because what they teach you is like the mindset. So it's like if you see this question, like how do you approach it? So for example, whenever I see a binary tree question, after doing a bunch of problems, I know like, oh, it's usually you can use like BFS to traverse a binary tree. Or if it's like a linked list question, I know that, for example, like I need to use like pointers to keep track of my location because you can't index into a linked list, or just simple things like that. You start to pick up on these patterns. So even if they don't ask you the exact same question, they might reword it and adjust it so it's a little bit different, but you know the general algorithm, so then you can like apply it to very similar questions. And so it's like picking up on those patterns, like knowing how to approach a question is what you're really learning, rather than like sitting there and memorizing the solution, because like there's just too many problems. There's no way you can memorize everything.
Yeah, and then for leak code, is it you have to practice a lot on the like medium level or
Right.
hard level?
Generally, like I stuck to like medium level because hard is like they get hard. Like it's
Really
just
hard.
like, yeah, exactly. It's like you have to like think very creatively, and for me, like usually ends up taking more than an hour to answer the hard questions. And what I've seen is like it's usually medium level questions that they ask at interviews, so that's what I stick with. And if they do ask you a hard question, they usually provide a lot of hints, so it's like not as
You can
difficult.
stretch yourself once you
Yeah.
are very solid for the medium level.
Exactly.
So medium level is the best place to
Exactly.
start.
So you don't get discouraged too, because if you go into hard and you can't solve anything, you're gonna feel like, oh, I can't do these interviews. This is too hard for me. But then easy is the opposite. It's like, oh, these like easy questions are a piece of cake. I'm gonna do so well at the interview. So it's like medium is a perfect
medium rare
balance. Exactly.
Gotcha. Okay. So once you, how long does it take for you? I mean, as a computer science student, to do you feel like if you don't do any preparation for the leak code or the cracking interview book, do you think the knowledge you learned in school is sufficient to do the interview to finish?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Because what we learn at school is very practical, or like it's either
Project-based.
practical, yeah, or project based or theory based, and they don't ask you these questions at like an entry level interview. So maybe if you're like a senior developer, they'll care about like what projects you've done with React or something. But at every single like new grad or internship interview, all they care about is a coding problem. Not, yes, the projects are important, but if you can't get the coding question, it doesn't matter if you built the most amazing iOS app in the world. So it's unfair in that sense, but yeah, like you definitely need to do interview prep. Like school does not prepare you for interviews.
So I guess the reason why they test you like this way is because those are foundations. Once you have those good algorithms,
That's true.
and then you can do anything.
Exactly, yes.
Okay.
And like similarly, it's like whenever you interview, they let you choose any language because it's like as long as you know one language and you know it well, they know you can learn another language. So I think the same thing applies. If you know
Gotcha.
how to take a problem and solve it, you can always learn like any sort of technology, like AWS or like Spark or something like that. They just want to see your capability to learn.
Gotcha. And then in terms of how to get the interview, right? Because
Yeah.
you mentioned the first 2 times you just applied online, and then they just offer you a challenge,
Exactly.
coding challenge, and then you succeed, and then you move on.
Exactly.
And then the third time you reach out
The
proactively.
recruiter,
Yeah.
yes. Exactly. So with big companies, they're always like apply online. Like even if you talk to them in person,
So
like,
there's no need to go to career fair at all because you just apply online.
well, like not necessarily. It's like there's
What's
no
the
need to
benefit?
stand in line because like they're just gonna tell you to apply online. But it is really helpful if you get to talk to the recruiter directly because
You mean wait in the line for an
Yeah.
hour to talk to them?
if you can talk to the recruiter
so they
because
can make
like
an impression.
exactly because they're the ones who can actually access the applications, like fast track the process and whatnot. So at career fair, it's usually like former or like software engineers, and they'll tell you about their experience, which is great and whatnot, but unless you can talk to the recruiter, it's not as beneficial for application. But and I know a lot of schools may do this in the sense like they host a lot of like campus events. So Microsoft will come and they'll host something called office hours where you can
Yeah.
talk to the recruiter in person and show them your resume
Mhm.
and say like, oh, here are my skills. So then they have your name is like fresh on their mind, and so when they see your application, they'll pull it out and like be like, okay, this person sounded really great in person, let me give them an interview.
I see.
So the
Because there's
recruiter is
so
always
many,
the key. Exactly.
so many candidates. So you want
Exactly.
to move
Stand
faster,
out. Yeah.
stand out. Yeah, just talk to the insider.
Exactly.
So you can have the back door.
Yep.
Gotcha. Okay. And then maybe we would like to know more about the internship experience. What kind of project you do? Do you like?
Yeah.
Do you think Microsoft is still a cool company? You know, before or after they the same to you? You know,
Yeah. My internship was amazing.
Really?
I had the best summer there.
past summer.
So like I'll talk about my experience first. So I was on like the office team, hence my shirt.
Office.
Yeah,
the office
and so
team, okay.
under
The
office,
core.
yeah, like office
Okay.
feedback and diagnostics. So I worked with like collecting feedback for Word, PowerPoint, Excel, like those kind of apps. So when I interviewed, I had no clue who I was interviewing for. So I basically said, well, these were my interests, and then they matched you with an open spot, basically.
Okay.
So it's like, it's just random luck where you end up getting put, but that's where I got put. And before the internship, like my mentor, he reached out to me being all like, hi, my name is blah, blah, blah. You are on this team. Love to get to know more about you. So then he reached out around April, and so my internship started like late May. So we just went back and forth, and then I was all like, okay, well, here's my skill set. I'm really interested in like data science. I emphasized that a lot. And he was like, okay, we'll definitely like find you a cool project. So when I get there, I'm like very excited. I'm like, oh, am I finally gonna be able to learn data science like in like an industry at an actual company? And they're all like, so how well do you know React? And I was like, I've never touched like I barely touched JavaScript at school or like a personal
Why?
project.
Because you like data science.
Exactly. So that's where I just focused on. So I was like, I don't know that very well. And basically he was all like, well, we have this like coming deadline for like building this thing called the feedback action card very soon. So it'll be a really cool project. Like it'll be on Office Online and it'll be on all 3 apps. So you'll get a lot of like impact out there. And then he was all like, I know you're really interested in data science, but right now like we have to finish this project first before like you can do anything data science related. So at the start of my internship, I was a little bit sad. I was all like, oh, it's such a big company, and like I was worried that I would just get ignored because there's so many people. It's hard for them to like find a perfect project for every single person. But I ended up talking to my manager, and she received feedback from my mentor about my interest in data science. So she was all like, I really want your internship experience to be worthwhile. I want to give you bragging rights, but I also want to do something that you find interesting, that you find worthwhile.
Yeah.
So what she basically did was, we do need to get this like React card finished. So the first half of your internship, like, do your best to like learn React and then like work fast and like build this feedback action card. And this is something that'll actually, because it's a front end project, so it's something that'll actually be seen by customers, seen by people. So you'll have bragging rights, is what she said.
Yeah.
And then after that, I want to work with the data science team to find you a project on their team so you can actually learn something. And I was like, wow, like that's amazing. Like not a lot of managers would do that. And I think I got very lucky to get a manager that actually cared about my experience.
Yeah.
So I was really excited because it's like I got to like learn new technology and do data science, but I also needed to almost work twice as fast because like I asked for 2 projects basically instead of 1 project.
Very greedy.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't like 2 projects, it's more like 1.5 because like the feedback action card project, like I finished like 80% of it, but the last 20% got like pushed off so I could do the data science project.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my work. Like I learned like React and TypeScript, so that was pretty cool. And it was also a chance to like prove myself and be like, oh, I learned fast.
How did you learn it?
It was just reading a bunch of documentation, and there's a lot of tutorials online, so it's just like looking up stuff. And what was also helpful is one of my coworkers, she recently built a React like based feedback component recently, so it was fresh on her mind. So I got to basically follow her, like the steps she took to build her feedback component to build my feedback component. So it was really nice to have that like example ready to go and her experience, so I could always ask her questions, and they were extremely helpful, like which was really nice.
Now I would say lucky, kind of, right? You have
exactly
a mentor.
Exactly. But even then, it's just like learning and like looking up examples online and doing like reviewing your code with people and getting feedback. That's like the best way to learn. So that was really cool. Now I feel like I'm not a React expert. That's a bit of a stretch, but I do definitely feel a lot more confident about my front end skills, and I would have never tried it if I hadn't been put into this position. So now I have an extra skill to add to my resume.
Yeah.
So that was really cool.
That's cool.
So I built the React component, and then so that was like first half of the summer, and then the second half of the summer I worked with Office's like data science team and like worked on a project for like trying to improve Office performance. So basically we knew that something like running on your computer would sometimes slow down like how long it takes like Word or PowerPoint to launch. So we know like how long the app took to launch, and we know what processes were running in the background. And then I had to like apply like statistical methods and like build a classifier to try to figure out like what processes were like slowing down like the app launch time.
Oh.
So that was really cool because this was my first time like actually applying like skills I learned in class, like in my statistics and like data science classes, to an actual project. And it's not just like a random project where you know there's an answer, you know like there's a right and wrong answer, and you're trying to work through that.
Nobody have ever done that before.
Exactly. So now it's like they're just like, okay, here's the question. Now try to find an answer. Like we don't even know if it exists or not.
Yeah.
So that was really crazy. But my mentor was super helpful there. He met up with me like every day actually, which was like really nice because he has his own work to do. So like it was really nice that he took so much time out of his day to help me out. And so I like feel like this is where I am, this is what I think should be the next step, and then he'd give me feedback and be like, okay, maybe try this instead, or oh no, you're on the right track, do this, and then we'll meet again tomorrow. So it was like an amazing learning process. It's like I got direct feedback on my experience.
Direct feedback.
Yeah, exactly.